Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
Shock from the murders is reverberating around the country, highlighting the issue of family violence. Here in Tasmania, reports of incidents have reached a 10-year high, but local support services say they're here and ready to help.
It's a scene that sent shockwaves across the country.
I was absolutely appalled. What a terrible, terrible tragedy. There's no words can't describe it.
Highlighting the scourge that is family violence. Here in Tasmania, reported incidents are at a 10-year high. Police responding to about 13 family-related incidents every day, one every 2 hours.
That in itself is always concerning when you know that family violence occurs in the community, but it's also to some degree pleasing that people at least feel comfortable to come to us and report the instances.
I'd encourage people to step forward, no matter how trivial or minor they might think some of the behaviours that are impacting them are, and to go and talk to someone about it.
For those needing assistance, there are a number of dedicated agencies offering services and people to talk to.
Get their support to maybe reach out to an appropriate service. There's emergency accommodation, so crisis accommodation. There's also medium-term accommodation, so up to 12 months. And then there are longer-term accommodation.
Spreading a simple message.
There's no shame in asking for help, and it's okay to reach out, and it's okay to make a decision about what you want to do next.
We'd always encourage people to take action with regards to family violence, particularly if it is an emergency and you know it may not be yourself, but you may know of someone else who is in an emergency situation.
If you need help, call 1-800-RESPECT for confidential counselling and support. In a personal crisis, Lifeline is also available. But if it's an emergency, 000 is the number to call. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
The impacts of the deadly virus continue to be felt here in Tasmania, with 1,300 university students stuck in China. UTAS says it's confident special arrangements won't impact any student studies, but it's not the only sector left reeling from the global outbreak.
Fortuna getting ready to send this seafood across the state. So far, the major player in Tasmania's salmon industry has been unaffected by China's coronavirus shutdown, but others haven't been so lucky.
In terms of rock lobster and abalone and other forms of seafood, there has been an impact, and that's why as a government we move very swiftly.
The flow-on effect of the outbreak spreading. The University of Tasmania preparing to start semester 1 on Monday, with 1,300 students absent from campus. Stuck in China, forced to study online due to the rolling travel bans.
We have a fantastic set of online offerings, so we expect that they'll have just as good an education getting going online, and then they'll be able to come here when that becomes possible.
Promising the education of others won't be compromised despite the uncertain future.
We wanted to make sure that students were not disadvantaged and that they were able to get their degrees going or continue them and not face any risk of serious long-term disruption to their education.
The impact is there, and as a government we stand shoulder to shoulder with the industry, those working in it, to see if we can push through, and we'll continue to monitor this situation very carefully.
The university says it helped to self-isolate a handful of its students recently arrived from China, but they've since been cleared. Currently in Tasmania, all 20 tests for coronavirus have come back negative. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
The father of a Tasmanian teenager believed to have taken his own life has made a passionate plea for more services. 16-year-old Liam Mead died after he was discharged from a mental health clinic in Melbourne in 2017.
Why did Liam Mead die? It's the question his father has been asking for 3 long years.
Liam was a beautiful child. He was a gifted child, and this should not have happened. He displayed no signs of psychotic behaviour.
Liam sought treatment from a private Melbourne clinic for an anxiety disorder. In March 2017, he was discharged. He died 2 days later. Today's inquest heard evidence from psychiatrist and former Australian of the Year Patrick McGorry. Asked by coroner Ken Stanton what would have prevented the outcome, Professor McGorry suggested more people involved and monitoring. Professor McGorry did not treat Liam Mead as a patient, but he noted Liam was booked for a follow-up appointment 3 days after he left the clinic. But the inquest has also placed a spotlight on the state's adolescent mental health services. Today, the state's chief psychiatrist said 2 dedicated beds would be included as part of the K-Block redevelopment, with more help on the way as part of the Peacock Centre redevelopment.
I don't think there's going to be closure for me until I see an adolescent mental health care facility in Tasmania, primarily because I don't want to see what I went through happen to other families.
The inquest continues. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Crisis support is available at Lifeline 24 hours a day. A Geeveston bed and breakfast has been targeted in a suspected arson attack, causing an estimated $80,000 damage. It's a blow for the community, which just 1 year ago faced the disruption of the Huon Valley bushfires.
Investigators searching through the contents of a fire-ravaged building. The charred remains of part of popular Geeveston Cafe and B&B, the Bears went over the mountain. Shortly after midnight, fire crews from Franklin, Geeveston and Huonville were called to the Church Street address, finding the building adjoining the cafe alight, working quickly to stop the flames from spreading. Occupants at the property overnight able to evacuate safely without injury. While contained to one area of the business, the fire is a blow for the Geeveston community, which is still recovering from the impact of bushfires this time last year. Emergency services remained on the scene for several hours, working to understand the cause of the fire. Police were unavailable for interview, but in a statement said it is being treated as suspicious. The building and its contents were extensively damaged, with the bill estimated to be in the vicinity of $80,000. Anybody with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. Ebony Ablett, 7 Tasmania News.
Detectives are appealing for dashcam footage to help track down a man who held up the Evandale post office. Police say any footage taken in the area at around 10 o'clock yesterday morning could help narrow the search. The suspect fled with a large sum of cash after threatening a female worker with a taser. It's believed he escaped in a green Holden Commodore. Police described the man as wearing a dark-coloured jumper and having a crooked nose with a distinctive scar. Information can be passed on to Crime Stoppers. From trains to teaching, the transformation of Inveresk from an industrial site to a learning hub is underway. Construction of the university's library will see visible progress at last after nearly 4 years of planning.
Popping the champagne by punching the ground. After spending years in limbo, piling work has begun at the Inveresk site, preparing the foundations for a new library and student services building.
A building not just for students, but a building also for the community.
And for workers, 430 of them during this first phase of construction, which will roll on for the next 2 years.
From what I'm advised, this is the single largest infrastructure project in Launceston's history.
It also marks another big change to this site, which was once Tasmania's largest industrial centre. More than 1,000 people toiled in the old railway workshops at their peak after World War II. Train work finally reached the end of the line in the mid-90s when production moved to Newstead. It's new life with the University of Tasmania, symbolic of an economic shift from manufacturing to education.
There are so many people in northern Tasmania, and it's not just about Launceston, it is northern Tasmania, that do not go on to further education, and that is something that is an issue that affects a lot of things in our community, including health. So this is so important for the city.
The uni's full relocation into the city aims to be complete by 2024. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Police are trying to track down a double-barrel shotgun and an air rifle stolen earlier this week. Investigators say they were taken from a property just outside New Norfolk. They've arrested 2 suspects and tracked down 1 firearm.
Always of concern, we have 2 outstanding firearms. We are continuing to make a number of inquiries in relation to the location of those, and we'll conduct a number of more searches in an attempt to find them.
Anyone with information is urged to contact Crime Stoppers. War games are getting underway in Bass Strait after a Navy fleet left Sydney earlier this week. 7 of Australia's ships and 2 of our submarines are taking part in the major exercise. It will also involve military aircraft from New Zealand and the United States. More than 2,000 personnel are taking part, so units can be certified for possible deployment. The exercise is due to run for the next 2 weeks. It has rattled minds and bodies for years. The latest edition of the Hagley Crop Maze has been described as one of the toughest yet. Organisers are predicting thousands to take on the challenge, with this year's unique design a nod to an iconic agricultural symbol.
On the outskirts of Hagley, a maze within the maze.
Now that we've cut it, it is such a relief and it looks good. We're really happy with how the design's worked out.
The 8th instalment of Rupert's Wood Farm's crop maze almost complete. The eye-catching centrepiece, a merino ram, an unmistakable figure of Australian history.
And I think people are going to like it, learning about why wool is, a fibre of choice, renewable, natural, and the history in Tasmania.
International specialists Mazescape designed the labyrinth before the Clark family used a GPS tool to meticulously carve through the field.
And usually mow in the night so we can see the screen really clearly. Probably takes around 3 to 4 hours to cut it.
But most will struggle to catch a real-life glimpse of the masterpiece as they rack their brains attempting to decipher clues hidden throughout the pastures. Search and rescue missions are frequent.
It's over 4 hectares, so some people are in there for a long time.
The average person takes around an hour and a half to solve the maze. The quickest is breezed through in just 45 minutes. Organisers say this year's challenge may be the most difficult yet. But it isn't finished growing yet.
The next week will probably grow another foot or so, but then when we're finished, we'll probably grow another metre from here, so it gets very high.
More than 7,000 people are set to test themselves in the cryptic crop when it opens next week. Garth Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
3 Tasmanians are hitting the road in 3 separate cycling events around the world. Overnight, Cameron Worth began his campaign in the 5-stage Volta ao Algarve in Portugal. His second race with Team Ineos followed last month's Cadel Evans road race. Richie Porte begins his European season tomorrow in the 3-day Tour de Var along the French Riviera, and Will Clark is lining up for the 7-stage UAE Tour from Sunday, which will mark his comeback from a terrifying crash in Belgium last June. Toorak Affair has been hit with a 3-kilogram penalty for next week's Launceston Cup. The Michael Trinder trained mare will carry 57 kilograms in Wednesday's race. The handicap is being imposed after she cruised to a 1.5 length win in the Hobart Cup. New Zealand gelding Home by Midnight will carry top weight of 59 kilograms, and the barrier draw for the Cup is being held at Mowbray tomorrow night. And Tasmania has 3 of the 7 best golf courses in the nation, according to Australian Golf Digest. Cape Wickham on King Island has climbed into 2nd place on the prestigious list. Barnbougle Dunes was 4th, while Barnbougle Lost Farm came in at number 7. Royal Melbourne West was number 1, but the list's publisher says Cape Wickham is within reach of the top spot, owing to its clever design, which makes you feel like you're playing on the edge of the world. Aren't we lucky, Merv, to have some wonderful golf courses around the state?
We've got some pretty good tracks for golf, Tom. In fact, last week I played in my brand new socks and I got a hole in one. Thanks for that.
Good evening, everyone. Temperatures below average today, with Launceston the state's top of 22 degrees, 21 in Devonport, and Hobart and Burnie both reaching 20. Friendly Beaches 21, St Helens and Ouse both 20, 19 in Smithton and Lowhead, and Flinders Island and Grove 18 degrees. Mid to low level cloud about the west and south today, with cloud clearing from the east throughout the day. Across the rest of the country, mid to low level cloud sits over southern Victoria, while extensive mid to high level cloud covers much of Western Australia. Tomorrow's chart shows a southwesterly flow over the state, while several troughs and low pressure systems sit over parts of the mainland. South to southwesterly winds tomorrow 15 to 25 knots, reaching 20 to 30 knots in the south and east during the afternoon. A strong wind warning is current from St Helens to Low Rocky Point and from Stanley to the northern tip of Flinders Island, and this strong wind warning is also current for the southeast inshore waters except the Derwent. Hobart and Campania 18 tomorrow, 17 in Huonville. Launceston and Devonport partly cloudy and 21, 19 in Georgetown. Burnie 20, a shower or 2 in Strawn and 20 in Wynyard. And in the east, 19 degrees in St Helens and Swansea, and Port Arthur reaching 16. The UV across the state tomorrow is very high. On Saturday, fine with light winds. Mainly fine on Sunday, again with light winds. And looking on to Monday, fine apart from possible showers in the west. Partly cloudy in Perth and Adelaide tomorrow, 19 in Melbourne and 27 in Canberra. And currently, Hobart, mostly cloudy and 17, Launceston, sunny and 20, and sunny and 18 in Devonport. And Murph, that's the weather.
Thanks very much, Chelsea. Could be a bit warmer. Can you do a bit of work on that for us? That's all our news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us this evening. Good night.